right, I'm going to be honest with you. We're going to have to do the top 10 stories in more detail next Monday when we're back here because the crew, as usual, has overdone it and put so many graphics and so many news articles and so many documents in there that it made the computer crash. Because we've got some Tinker toy made on the moon, but the computer we've got. But no, seriously, great job to the crew. Great job to Do, who's been on vacation and has a new nickname, the director. All right, it's InfoWars Nightly News, screwing around a bit. It is the final transmission. I might do a few YouTube rants or something over the weekend, but it is the final transmission of 2011. What an incredibly eventful year. And no, I'm not going to cover tonight MSNBC demonizing myself and Ron Paul last night, or the fact that our operation has been in more than 500 mainstream, that means zombie-controlling, prostitute, New World Order, dinosaur, whore media in the last 2 weeks, and that we're absolutely devastating the globalists. I'm not going to get into that today, though I just did in a way. I'm not going to cover as our top 10 stories, even though in many newspapers, the Charlie Sheen story that broke on my show earlier in the year inadvertently is one of the top entertainment stories, if not the #1 entertainment stories of the year. We're not going to get into all of that because that's not what we do here. We're about the hardcore intel, the analysis. We're obsessed with reality. And so we do have these top 10 points. And you can argue what story is more important or what story is less important. Quite frankly, I think the buildup to Iran and a huge war that runs from bad to worse, and Ray McGovern, former top CIA analyst, is going to be joining us via video Skype here in a few minutes to break that down. You can debate whether Fukushima is a bigger story or whether the buildup to war with Iran is a bigger story. But Iran hasn't happened yet, so I think it does deserve to be basically where it is on our top 10 list here. But you can certainly debate the placement of these bad boys. So let me go ahead and just start with number 10, building towards the most important story of the year here at InfoWars at Nightly News. By the way, we've been doing the show now, what, 4 or 5 months? September 1st was our launch, and we are about to go into the second year of the transmission here at InfoWars Nightly News. You can see the logo there. It may turn into Megatron any minute. All right. You want to hear a Starscream imitation? I did one of those on the radio today. Megatron, I will be the leader. All right. Continuing here. All right. It's the end of the year. We're plunging into nightmarish 2012. It's gallows humor. You're publicly educated like I was, you may not know what gallows humor is if you're a new viewer out there, not one of our savvy subscribers, but you're about to be hung. The other guys are lined up being hung in front of you. A lot of people are known to not break down and cry and beg for mommy. You make a smart-ass joke. That's kind of what we're doing here. Okay, I apologize. I'm going to stop right there. See, something happens like a time warp. I'm in a hurry to get out of here. My wife's going out with her friends tonight. I'm going to babysit, and I'm already supposed to be home. But it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go ahead and do like a 2-hour show here. And her and her friends can all wait at the house. These are called lame attempts at humor. She's going to love that part of the broadcast tonight. All right. I'll be home after New Year's, honey. You can go out the day after. Oh, boy. All right. Number 10, Occupy movement. Fed Reserve Occupy movement was our event to basically counter the George Soros attempt to take control of any protest against what corrupt elements of Wall Street are doing. They wanted to make it about a wealth transference issue instead of debating how the big mega banks are shutting down the free market and using government to create crony capitalist monopolies and basically shut down their competition. We're all for people creating a widget or a book or a new musical instrument making $1 billion. That's what makes the world go round. And that's what honors individual creativity. But this idea that our problems have been caused because of the free market and private property, no, we're getting away from the free market and private property and the Bill of Rights and Constitution. That's the oxygen being sucked out of the room. So number 10 is the establishment knowing that revolution was coming, that revolution was calling, as the Queen's Reich song says, revolution calling, revolution calling. They knew that that was happening, so they tried to basically trigger it preemptively, like Red Adair blowing up a oil well on fire with a stick of dynamite. But it didn't work, so now they're trying to clean that experiment off the street. Al Gore, of course, called for their own Arab Spring here in America, and it failed. That's their attempt to steer public anger into giving the globalists more power, and it failed. Doesn't mean the individual Occupy people are bad, but the overall control and the spin and what the dinosaur whore media labeled it as, that is a fraud. Number 9, Al-Qaeda-NATO alliance. NATO helping the Al-Qaeda rebels. Rebels are Al-Qaeda-led, and now they're exporting it on to Syria. We reported with Webster Tarpley and other valiant investigative journalists, while it was under bombardment, 2 months into the 6-month peace bomb attack, the birth of the peace bomb. This is not a military action. We're just bombing all your cities. That the Arab fighters brought in out of Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Afghanistan. Well, that's Central Asian, folks, not really Arab. But the point is, they're in Afghanistan with the Arab fighters. Were slaughtering black people all over Libya because it was known that they tended to side with Gaddafi. And since then, the BBC and many others have admitted, okay, they've probably killed 40,000 black people. But you know what? It's liberal because Obama did it and NATO did it. So hacking up black folks with machetes and shooting little kids in the head, that's liberal. Now, if you had tens of thousands of newsletters and 9 lines of, semi kind of right-wing bigoted statements, well, then you can't be elected president like Ron Paul. But if you're who actually fought against hacking up black people with machetes because he's racist. So there you go. That's all been proven accurate there now that our reporters first told us here on this show from Syria. But hey, being right's a bad thing in the modern age of insanity. What did George Orwell say? In a world of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. Moving on along from Al-Qaeda, who's always worked for the big banks and the CIA, let's go to number 8. Ron Paul surging in not just Iowa to number 1, but in other states, despite the out-of-control attacks that I already mentioned. And one reason the system is so scared of Ron Paul is in major national polls, he is the number 1 Republican amongst, quote, minorities, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, and others. And so that's why the system is going after him, because they need the Republicans and Democrats to continue this whole racial divide and conquer where they play everybody off against each other while offshore banks rob the living daylights out of us through their control of the taxation system that's paid to them in banker bailouts. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, Mitt Romney has said it's his mission to defeat Ron Paul. I thought he was somebody that couldn't win. I thought he was somebody you ignored and gave 89 seconds in the CBS debate. But now the American people want Ron Paul, so they're saying, well, you're kooks, you're dangerous. They're saying his supporters are cult members. So the corrupt establishment is saying, we're cult members because we want Ron Paul, because the majority wants Ron Paul. And so now they're trying to say, well, if you let him win the Iowa caucuses, it discredits the caucus system. So now our electoral process is discredited if we elect Ron Paul. And it's those trying to discredit the electoral process who are then blaming those of us who haven't discredited it for what's happened. They say it will discredit it, the governor of Iowa and others, when they're the ones trying to discredit it. Amazing. But now the Republican leadership has said because of hacker threats, they'll have to count the caucus ballots. It's known he would win because it's the only fair vote in the country where it's hands being raised in each precinct and written down, and then you just tally them publicly in the state. But now that will be secretive, the Republicans have said, and it will be sent to a secret location, and no one is allowed to see it to keep us safe from hackers, a.k.a. boogeymen, a.k.a. Al-Qaeda. So clearly they're getting ready to try to steal Iowa because they know he's turbo surging and it's just more fraud. So some would say, well, then why do we even try? Because by resisting, we educate people. By resisting, we show the fraud. By resisting, more people learn the truth about the New World Order. As Ron Paul will tell you, great patriot and historian and doctor and economist, he is only a focal point for revolution against tyranny, a restoration of the republic. And by fighting, we get stronger. You know, the first time I went and lifted weights, I couldn't bench press 340 pounds. But after 5-6 years of lifting weights, I could do it. The first time I tried to jog, I could only run a mile. You know, now I can run 8 miles, even though I'm a lard butt, as people well know. It takes a process of working out mentally, physically, spiritually on any issue. Playing an instrument, you pick up a guitar the first time or a piano. You can't play it, but you learn to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. Next, you're playing Strauss, Beethoven, and other classics. Okay, continuing away from Ron Paul, I didn't cover all the points. It's just that he shows that the resistance is rising and that the dinosaur dying media, that's not mainstream media, that is fraud, globalist, corporate propaganda media, is dying. They tried to defeat Rand Paul by saying he kidnapped women, worshiped Buddhas, every other bizarre form you can imagine. They hired people to dress up as hayseeds and have racist signs. They got caught. Now, that remains to be seen nationally what will happen with Ron Paul, but we're definitely in the fight. This is a big deal that's happening right now, and it's only foreshadowing of things to come. Let's move on now to number 7, FEMA camp activation. Does that mean they're going to throw us all in them tomorrow? No, but it means they're actually putting the bids out, as we showed you earlier in the year, just a few weeks ago actually, that the government is putting out public bids to now man the emergency centers that they've built at former military bases across the country, and the FEMA camps are admitted, and the NDAA is passed, and they admit they're going to put troops on the streets, and it's all happening. And it just shows you that the criminal class that's robbed tens of trillions of dollars and thinks the American people are going to be signed on to all the derivatives fraud, it shows that they're scared. And we're going to be talking with Ray McGovern about that here in just a moment. In fact, speaking of Ray McGovern, that takes us now from number 7, FEMA camp activation, to number 6, Iran war buildup. Fake plot with used car salesmen out of Corpus Christi, Texas, drills in the Strait of Hormuz, drone shoot down U.S. ships trying to provoke attacks, and more. Ron Paul, a few weeks ago, was on my radio show. And again, the system's trying to dictate reality and saying Ron Paul shouldn't go on that show because it's so extreme. No, because we're so extremely accurate and teleprompter free and hardcore about freedom. They hate the fact that he has so much credibility and he's linking up with us over 16 years, and that gives us more credibility, and then we give him more credibility, and it creates this grassroots synergy of saying, hey, Chris Matthews, all of you, you're a bunch of jokes, little degenerate, lying, teleprompter reading scumbags who think you sit up there in this air of respectability and authority. Last night on Slimeball, Chris Slimeball Matthews was saying to these little twitly reporters he had on, little establishment bloggers, well, is it credible that Ron Paul is saying this whole Iranian assassination plot in the U.S. of the Saudi ambassador is bull? Is that credible? And the lazy-eyed woman they had on there, I mean, she looked like my dogs have more life in their eyes than her. I mean, 1,000 times. This dead-eyed woman, this one-way eyes, you know, there's nothing behind them. It's just one way, like doll eyes. Her eyes were unfocused and looking around like she was having a seizure or something. Or having a stroke. I mean, I actually feel sorry for her talking about her now, but I have to discuss it. He looks to her as this appeal to authority, and if we had time now, we'd play the clip, play it on the radio, and she's sitting there all, like a little rag. She's like, can't really focus. And he goes, is it credible that Ron Paul says that this Iran threat wasn't credible? She's like, I guess not. I mean, her hair is disheveled. She's like in some clown suit. I mean, she looks like an amoeba is powering her brain or something. They got an amoeba on a treadmill powering her brain. I'm not trying to be mean. And here is Chris Matthews. Is this credible? And and then she says it's not credible, so you're supposed to go, oh, well, someone who has an IQ around room temperature is telling me that it's not credible, so it must be. Think for yourself. Don't believe me. Don't believe them. Look into it. Please. Holy mackerel. I mean, the globalists are a bunch of stilted idiots. We just sit here and buy into their con game. It can end whenever you're ready to wake up to it. Okay, I'm ranting. I understand that.